Okay, this is the February 7th, 2023 meeting of the Boston Mineral Club. See if I can get this to go full screen. There we go. Can somebody put on their microphone and let me know if you're seeing my screen?
I see it.
Okay.
Yes, you're on screen.
Okay, so here we are. It's February 7th, 2023. Obviously, we could have met in person probably with the lucky fortune we've had with COVID, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But we decided to do one more virtually, and probably next month we'll get back to live meetings. I'll talk about that as we go through. The general plan for tonight's meeting is I'm going to, as usual, give a COVID update right up front. I'll show you what the numbers look like and why we're probably going to be going to live meetings for the foreseeable future as things have started to look quite good. Something I've been neglecting to do, I'm going to see if there's any new members who want to introduce themselves. It's something we've sort of gotten out of the habit of with virtual meetings, but we should probably be doing it anyway. Obviously, the coolest thing of the month, that's a standard thing I do, is a really interesting thing I found this month that I put in there. A lot of you probably heard that Frank Perham passed away about a week ago. I'm going to just briefly talk about him just a little bit. There's a slot for the treasurer's report, but Steve is working in Tucson, so I didn't get a report. So there'll be a slide for that, but no data. Then we'll talk a little bit about the calendar and give people a chance to bring up any other business that they're seeing. Then, of course, the speaker is my brother Dana, who's going to talk about one of his favorite subjects, zeolites, the family of minerals. And then we're going to finish off after he's done with a raffle. As usual, I start with this. This is the Boston wastewater situation. You can see the Omicron spike, which is off the left side of the graph. Last year, the worst spike of the pandemic, it had shot up to 15,000 on this scale in the wastewater in the Boston area. So, you know, we were only up at 2,000. We were nowhere near Omicron levels at the peak of this winter wave. In fact, it's a fairly tiny wave by the standards of the pandemic. And you can see it's already falling quite rapidly. So things are looking quite good to getting back to normal meetings. And if you look at the seasonality, there's a real low that exists right around the time of our March meeting. March and April tend to be the low months of the year. So I suspect we'll be having live meetings for the next couple of months at least. For those who haven't been looking at the historic data, I just threw this together as a comparison because we finally got a significant track record for the current pandemic to compare it with the historic one from 1918, which is the last time we had a major pandemic, the Spanish flu epidemic that broke through the United States. But I stretched these to the same scale just so you can see how similar these two epidemics have been. They both start with a little bit of a spike that's a warning, and then the next year is the big one. And then there's a third year where it doesn't seem to want to go away. And then in the case of the Spanish flu epidemic, it just kind of fizzled out. In the case of the current epidemic, it's fizzled down, but it hasn't quite gone away. We have a little tiny winter wave that's now receding here in New England, but it's actually still rising in other parts of the country. So knock on wood, we'll keep coming down and the rest of the country will join us. I decided to throw some numbers on there just for those who don't follow such things. Oops. This is I periodically look up what the top 10 leading causes of death in America are just to keep COVID in context. And I put little arrows as to where they would sit on this chart if they were the different, if they're on the same vertical scale as the COVID deaths. And you'll see right up there, number 1, heart disease, and number 2, cancer. Those have pretty much been 1 and 2 with the exceptions of the very peaks of the COVID spikes in the last 3 winters. And then you get a big drop off, and number 3 is accidents, which is mostly car accidents. So you can see that we're currently, the COVID risk of dying is pretty close to that of car accidents right about now. So it's fading fast. Then all the other 3 through 10 are all clumped together at fairly low levels, all the way down to self-harm. But you'll notice on the graph that the summer lows of the last 2 years actually knocked COVID off of the top 10 causes of death for periods of time at various times. So knock on wood, in a month or 2, we'll be back there where it's something that we really don't need to worry about on a day-to-day basis. Okay, as I said, if we have any new members, traditionally what we would do, and I know we've had, I think he mentioned 12 new members sign up on the new website. If there are any new members who've attended, could you just unmute yourself and just say a couple of words about who you are and how you found the club and what your collecting interests are? And we'll talk to anyone who's willing to say hi. Is there anybody out there? And give it just a couple more seconds for somebody to find the unmute button. If not, we'll just assume there are either no new members or nobody wanting to talk. But I thought I'd give it a try, since that's a traditional thing we used to do in our face-to-face meetings. If there are new members who don't want to... Hello?
A new member right here.
Ah, you got a new member. Who are you, and how did you come to the club, and what are your collecting interests?
So I am the father of the collector and the ambitious rock hound. This is Annabelle, who is 7 years old.
Excellent.
Oh, sorry, eight.
Changing it.
She loves crystals, gemstones. She loves reading about them. Yes, Saoirse. And this is Saoirse. She's their sister. And Annabelle is taking a liking to going treasure hunting, or like in Europe, they call it mudlarking, like the Thames River. And these are a lot of things that she's interested in, and going out and doing mudlarking, but also looking for stones, gems, and learning about them.
Well, it sounds like you'll really look forward to the good weather when we do field trips with the club. That should be a great opportunity.
That'd be awesome, yeah. And my wife found you guys, found the club, and signed her up to see if this is something that can further her experience and her knowledge, and get her more involved in something that she's passionate about.
Excellent. Well, thank you for introducing yourself. And if anything comes up, just feel free to fire me off an email. I'm happy to answer emails from members. My name's Scott Kruger. I'm the president of the club. You'll see me in the newsletter. So. Anybody else?
Well, thank you,
new
Scott.
member? Hello? Okay, I'm going to take the silence to imply that that's the only new member that wanted to speak up. Okay, I'm going to move on to the coolest new thing this month. This is something that came across my news feed. I have lots of geologic interests, being a professional geologist. And this is one that was rather eye-opening in terms of how it changes our view of things. There was a discovery that was just made in Ethiopia by some archaeologists / geologists who are working on early man sites in Ethiopia, in the Danakil area in Ethiopia. And they discovered what looked like it is a obsidian knapping site. Knapping is the making of tools out of stone. It's the term we use for that. But it turns out it's far older than any site we found previously that indicated that humans or hominids were doing this kind of thing. Previously, the oldest was about 770,000 years old. This one's 1.2 million years old, so it pushes back by almost half the length of time that we know that humans were making and fashioning tools out of materials in their environment. And it's kind of fascinating to see it get pushed that far back, because it actually changes two fundamental things about our understanding of human evolution. The first one was that the oldest known sites had previously been around the North Sea and were knapping of flints from things like the chalk in the North Sea area. And so people thought that it had been devised in Europe, but of course this throws that out of the water. It looks like stone knapping was done long before that. It was done in Africa near the Middle East. So definitely things are changing in terms of our understanding. The other thing that it changes is that we had sort of, until recently, used the detailed fashioning of tools, the knapping of tools, as opposed to just breaking pebbles to get sharp edges, or breaking cobbles to get sharp edges. We used to think of the fashioning of tools by knapping as one of the technologies that indicated the evolution of modern humans and behavior that represents modern human behavior. But at this point, that blows that completely out the window, because the people that were working this obsidian workshop were not hominids of the kind we are. They were some earlier species. In fact, they predate Neanderthals and Denisovians, the simultaneous Asian equivalents of Neanderthals. So this is some older hominid species that it's not clear who they were at the time. There were multiple species of hominids running around at the time. So it tells you that this technology far, far predates modern humans. So I just thought that was really, really interesting stuff. I just wanted to stick in memoriam. I think some of you have probably heard the news that Frank Perham, who is a bit of a legend in Maine mining circles, had passed away about a week ago. He died on January 31st. A lot of people, if you've been fortunate enough to have met him, he's just a wonderful, wonderful guy who's always willing to share a story and a tale about collecting minerals and mining. He developed the name the Pocket Fairy because he's actually been associated with many of the biggest discoveries in the pegmatite belt of Maine. He became famous initially by being the contract miner who did the quarrying for the original discovery at the Dunton mine, the giant Newry tourmaline find back in the early 70s. It's the largest tourmaline discovery in the history of North America. And he was the guy who was doing the digging for that. He had developed skills as an excavator and driller and rock mover, working for the Maine Highway Department, and took those skills to mining. His family had a lot of mining in their history. His dad started and ran a mineral shop in downtown Paris, in Maine. And they have a long, long family history in the area. He picked up minerals and ran with it. But he's been known for big quarry operations at the Bumpus mine. He worked heavily at the Tamanin mine for several years. He was a big pusher and apparently the inventor of the concept of the term pseudo-cubic quartz, which was all the rage for several years. These are quartz crystals where there are no prisms, and every alternate termination face grows larger than the others. So you end up with 6 faces that are almost cubic. They're about 85 degrees instead of 90, but they can make some that look almost like cubes, which is very, very unusual for quartz. There are only a couple of locations in the world where those are known in any quantity. His family leased the Harvard mine for many, many years, and he worked it heavily for a couple of years. And all of the specimens that he collected went to his dad and were sold out of the Perham's rock shop in Paris, Maine. And more recently, most people have known him from the huge Mother Mary pocket that he discovered at Hayes Ledge when he was working the Hayes Ledge exhibit. We've had field trips that have gone up, and some people have actually found some of the quartz crystals that he dislodged from that pocket and were now scattered all over the dumps. But that was, for those of you who haven't heard it, it was an 80-foot long pocket that was just lined with multiple generations of quartz crystals. It's one of the largest pockets ever found in a pegmatite in Maine. Anyway, Frank Perham passed away. It's kind of a shame. If you never got to meet him, it would have been nice. He frequently shows up at places like the Gilsum Show or the Maine events of one sort or another in Maine. But anyway, sad to see him go. I've met him a couple of times. Didn't know him terribly well, but he was just a wonderful, wonderful little guy. I think a lot of people are going to miss him. As I said, the Treasurer's Report, Steve is at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show. He's actually working for one of the dealers there, so he's kind of busy and didn't have time to send in the report this month. In terms of coming events, as most of you know, the early activities at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show, larger Tucson area, have been going on for a week or two now. The main show kicks off on the 9th in 2 days and runs for about a week. And this is the biggest mineral show on the planet. And obviously some of the higher end collectors in the club have actually planned or are already there, either working it or just collecting at booths there.
Hey, Scott, I had a question. On their webpage, they show a different date.
Is that the North Shore show?
Just for context, for those people that aren't familiar with Tucson, the larger event, which is citywide, is about 50 or so shows, or probably more like 100. But anyway, lots of satellite shows, and they've been running for a couple of weeks now, and they're going to run well into a couple of weeks after these dates. I think these are the dates of the main show at the exhibition center, which is the core show.
No, no, Scott, I'm saying the New England show
Oh,
on the
sorry.
North Shore web on the North Shore website. They had April 29th and 30th, I think.
Oh, is that for the Topsfield show?
Yeah, we saw in one of the magazines they listed the 6th and the 7th, but if you go on the website of the North Shore Club, it posted the 29th and 30th of
Okay,
April.
well, that's just something I pulled off the web, so I may have gotten it from the wrong source. They may have changed the date by a week, and we'll need to watch that one. But I just wanted people to sort of see the things that are coming up in the sort of quiet period where we have winter weather. A lot of people are looking forward to that first show, and Topsfield is a big, big event for a lot of people. It sounds like it might be the last weekend in April rather than the first weekend in May. We have a meeting I'm really looking forward to on March 7th with the BMC. There's a gentleman named Joseph Bagley who's the Boston city archaeologist, and I've been talking with him for a couple of years now. He's doing some really interesting work tracking down Native American quarries around the Boston area. It turns out there was an awful lot of stoneworking that was being done by Native Americans before Europeans arrived. And he's been doing a fairly systematic survey, as best you can, of all the known quarry sites. And he's going to talk a little bit about some of the early results of his work on Native American quarry sites around Boston. So I'm really looking forward to that one. April 4th, we have another BMC monthly meeting. I don't have a speaker lined up yet for April. If anyone has any really good ideas for people, by all means, poke them my way. I'm still working on nailing somebody down for April. And then, as I said, I had it as May 6th, 7th, but it might be a week before that. That's the first big show is coming up in Topsfield. Are there any other events or business that anybody wanted to bring up that I hadn't put on the calendar?
Scott, I checked in the North Shore site. It says May 6th and 7th as well.
Yeah, that's probably where I got it. But that's something it's probably worth paying attention to if you're making holiday plans. You might want to check that and see if it changes.
Okay. Yeah, because I had gone onto their website and it had the 29th and 30th. That was a week or so ago, unless they changed it. So I'll check it again.
Okay. Some of
There's,
you. Go ahead.
Gilsum is coming up June 24th and 25th.
Yep, Gilsum is usually one of the early ones as well.
New England Mineral Conference up in Maine is actually happening this year, and they're having it May 19th and 20th. There should be some more
awesome
announcements about it after it's on.
Okay, so things are really going to get going in May and June.
What about the auction, Scott?
The auction is scheduled for June again this year. I'm going to start pushing really hard in the next month to get people to agree to volunteer and start assigning roles and get people thinking about that. Clearly, everybody needs to start thinking about whether or not they have specimens they're willing to donate to the club to auction off this year. We're starting to run low on the remaining inventory from Nate Martin's accumulated collection that he donated graciously to the club, or his wife did after he died. So we're probably going to be soliciting hard to get donations for the auction coming up. But this is the month when I usually start. Last year I should say usually. This is the month when last year I started aggressively trying to get people to sign up. And unless somebody else wants to take over the role of coordinating the auction, I'm probably going to be the person again this year. So. A lot of you probably heard that Melissa, our newsletter editor, is in the middle of a move, which made it very, very difficult for her to put out a BMC News this month. So we decided, I just told her to take the month off and we'll put out a dual monthly meeting, a dual monthly issue for the next 2 months. And so there won't be a BMC News this month, just so that people are aware of that. If you're wondering where it was, it's not coming. Okay, any other business?
Thank you, Scott.
Scott, if I could, I just wanted to give a membership update.
Excellent.
So we're up to 143 members in good standing. That includes people who've renewed plus 13 new members since the beginning of the year. and that means we have 89 people who still haven't renewed. The grace period runs until March 1st, at which time people's accounts will be suspended and their memberships. So make sure you renew your membership if you haven't yet by March 1st at the latest. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't been paying attention to the total membership numbers. That's been kind of one of those things I keep meaning to do, but I haven't done. How are we doing membership-wise? Are we growing, staying about the same? What do the numbers look like? Do you know?
I'm having a hard time signing up for it. I asked for a code. First I got a code. I got a second code, but it was too late. It was too many minutes late, and I haven't been able to do it. That's all I got.
I've been trying to work with Diane to fix that, but we lost a connection between us a little while ago. But yeah, so we have a total possible number of members is 237 members. And actually, Helen is doing some statistical analysis right now to give us an idea of how our membership has changed over the years.
That'd be great.
How many people have. So we'll have that probably coming up in the newsletter or something sometime soon.
Do we have historic lists of members that we can go back and count?
Yep. Yeah, Barbara supplied me with all the records from, I think, all the way back to 2009.
Oh, excellent.
So
yeah, I'd be real curious to see those.
Data.
Okay, anything else? Going once, going twice. Okay, after the talk, we're going to have our typical virtual raffle. These are the 5 specimens that Jonathan put together. I don't know, Jonathan, do you want to talk about these, or do you want me to just kind of introduce them based on the verbiage you sent me?
Sure. There's a barite and calcite from Durango, and it has nice little barite, tabular barite crystals in it.
Is that a hand specimen?
Yeah, it's a miniature.
Oh, okay.
So it's small.
Okay.
And the core, they're all relatively small because they fit nicely in the mailer. So we went with small size for ease of shipping.
Sounds good.
And then the next one is a quartz from Colombia. And then the fluorite is from Illinois. It's a cleave. It isn't a full crystal. And
prettier purple than that yellow light gives.
Yeah, it is a prettier purple, and also the andradite is also much prettier than that sort of dark mass that my poor photography skills did. So the andradite garnet is sort of is pretty nice, and then there's some it was labeled as amber, but I believe it's actually copal, which is both are ancient tree sap, but amber is hardened to stone, metamorphized to stone, and copal is is really just the original tree sap been hardened, but hasn't been fossilized to the degree that amber has, and that's from Chiapas, Mexico.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so we're going to raffle those off randomly to people who are on the call. And as I believe anyone who's won in the last couple of sessions, since we've only had one virtual session, that implies people who won last time.
Just if you won on the last one, you're not eligible to.
Yeah.
You have to pass. But,
so I've got the list.
Other than that, it's...
I've got the list, so be nice, or I'll call you out. If you win again, you shouldn't be claiming it. But anyway, so those are the ones that we'll do after the talk. So unless anyone else has any other business, I'm going to scoot ahead to Dana's talk. He's going to be talking about zeolites, a favorite topic of his. I don't know if he's going to mention it, but as a kid, he and I went out with our dad to collect zeolites in Nova Scotia, so I have a bit of a love for zeolites as well. So let me see if I can hand it over to Dana. Let's see if I can get my controls working here. Okay. You ready for the handoff, Dana?
Yep.
Okay. Make presenter. Yes. Okay, there you go. You should have it.
Okay, there we go. Let's get this into full screen mode.
It's looking good. I'm seeing it.
Okay, good. There we go.
Okay,
Hopefully,
can everybody turn off their microphones just so that Dana's the only one talking? Thank you.
hopefully there isn't anything on the right-hand side of my screens that I have to remember, because it's totally covered up by everybody's pictures here. But at any rate, I'm going to talk a little bit about zeolite minerals. I'll start with a short few slides discussing the chemistry and geology of zeolites and what exactly is a zeolite. And then the bulk of the talk is going to be a slideshow of photographs of specimens from my collection. As Scott mentioned in the introduction there, I got my my first interest in zeolites from a couple of trips that we took when I was in high school with the family up to Nova Scotia, and that was the first place I recall going to where you could actually find displayable hand specimens relatively commonly for a beginning collector. So it was sort of nirvana for an early collector, and it's definitely an area that I would urge anybody who has the time and the inclination to go visit, because it's just a wonderful collecting area. All the way around the Bay of Fundy, both on the North Shore up around Parsborough, and on the southern shore on Cape Lomadon and the areas to the west of there. Anyway, the zeolites are a class of okay, how do I advance this? There we go. Okay. Zeolites are a class of silicate minerals. They're what are called framework silicates. If you look at the different families of silicate minerals, they're to some degree defined by the interconnectivity of the different silicon tetrahedra. In silicate minerals, the silicon atoms are normally surrounded by 4 oxygen atoms in a tetrahedral array. And some of those tetrahedra can also be substituted with aluminum or titanium or other similar elements. But within the structure, those silicon tetrahedra are the defining characteristic of silicate minerals generally. The oxygen atoms at the corners of those silicate tetrahedra can be isolated ions, or they can be shared with a second tetrahedron. And so each silicon atom, or each silicon tetrahedron, can be connected to upwards of 4 other silicate tetrahedrons, tetrahedra. And if all 4 of them are connected to each other, you end up with a 3-dimensional structure that's referred to as a framework structure, where every silicon tetrahedron in the structure is connected to 4 other ones throughout the structure. And there are a few categories of minerals that fit that classification. The most well-known are quartz and the feldspars. But the largest group of the framework silicates, which are known technically as tectosilicates, are the zeolites. What distinguishes zeolites from quartz and feldspar, which are compositionally fairly similar, is that the zeolites have got a fairly open structure. What that means is that the average distance between silicate tetrahedra is considerably larger, leading to the structure having lots of holes and cages in it and channels that ions can move in and out of in a way that in the fairly tight frameworks that quartz and feldspar have is not really possible. Whoops. The frameworks contain the framework itself is on balance negatively charged. Excuse me. Yes, is on balance negatively charged, and the charge is balanced by various cations. In most silicates, they're sodium and calcium, but they can be a variety of other cations as well. And those cations, they balance the charge to make the whole structure electrically neutral. But the open voids and channels allow diffusion in and out of these cations, as well as water molecules, which are also a critical element in the structure of zeolites. The big holes in the structure tend to be filled up with water molecules. So the properties of zeolites, first, the open structure contain a lot of water molecules. These water molecules are fairly weakly bound, and in many cases, the water can be driven off reversibly at relatively low temperatures. So if you stick many zeolites in a relatively low temperature oven, maybe a couple hundred degrees, you'll lose a lot of weight as the water evaporates out of the structure. And in many cases, that loss of water is reversible. So if you take it back out and let it sit out in the open air for a while, all of that water will come right back. Well, not right back, but over time will come back. In fact, the name zeolites comes from this property. The term zeolite literally means boiling stones, meaning that if you heat them up, they generate steam. Now, the cations in the structure are also fairly readily exchanged, and this has made zeolites and zeolite structures as materials and chemicals extremely important industrially for things like ion exchangers and water softeners and the like. Many of the early applications for that type of material were with natural zeolites, although these days most of the industrial zeolites that are used for chemical materials are actually synthetic. That's another interesting aspect to zeolites. In the case of most minerals, most of the properties, most of the chemistry of the zeolites have been studied by mineralogists and geologists and petrologists. Not so in the case of zeolites. They are such important industrial materials that the vast majority of the work has actually been done by inorganic chemists who have no particular interest in geology. In addition to the applications that I mentioned in the second bullet point there, they are also widely used as catalysts. Most of the cracking catalysts used in the petroleum industry are based on synthetic zeolite structures. In their natural zeolites are generally low temperature minerals, and they're generally formed in high water environments. Those environments fall, broadly speaking, into three general categories. Probably the most abundant category from a purely mineralogical or geological standpoint are low temperature hydrothermal environments, such as sedimentary rocks and soils and sediments. However, in most cases, you don't form collectible minerals in those environments. You just form microcrystals that are part of the clay fraction, or what the very small crystalline fraction in the soils and sediments. However, a significant fraction of many soils and sediments are actually zeolites if you look at their X-ray patterns. Second category, which is probably the most important one from a mineral collector standpoint, are ones that are formed in late stage volcanic lava flows and in pockets and seams in various basalt and other volcanics. This is what you see in Nova Scotia, in New Jersey, all of the Indian zeolites, the zeolites you see in Northwest and Oregon and in Washington State, for instance, and many other places are found in this sort of environment. And probably the vast majority of collectible zeolites are found in this type of environment. Finally, some zeolites, including some fairly exotic ones, are found in the late stages of pegmatites, when most of the primary minerals, the quartz and the feldspar and the beryl, have long since crystallized out, and the remaining fluids are mostly water. Some of the last minerals to form can be zeolites. And that's where some of the zeolites that have unusual cations occur. Some of your lithium zeolites and cesium zeolites and the like are found here, found in pegmatite deposits. So the zeolites are a little bit of a heterogeneous group from a chemical and structural point of view. They're classified as a family of minerals because of their similarity of their structural properties, being framework silicates with high water content and mostly aluminosilicates, most typically with sodium and calcium as their cations. However, the zeolite minerals, of which there are around about 100 or so that have been described so far, if you follow MINDAT and the formal mineralogical literature, they can be defined as a series of small families of minerals based upon the particular structures of the particular family groups. In the chemistry literature on zeolites, they have identified, I believe, a couple hundred different structural types of frameworks. It's sort of like, putting together Tinker Toys. You put them together in different ways and you get different structures. But of those ones that have been defined by chemists, only about 40 or so of them have been found naturally. So the vast majority of the zeolite structures that have been defined are actually synthetic. The first group that I'm going to show some photographs of, and perhaps one of the most familiar groups to most mineral collectors, is the stilbite group. In most mineral labels and common parlance, it's just called stilbite, but the group actually consists of four defined minerals. Common stilbite is technically called stilbite calcium. based on the fact that it's got mostly calcium in its cationic structure. There's also stilbite sodium, which is almost entirely sodium in its structure. There's the mineral stellarite, which is has got almost no sodium in it. And then barite, which is similar to sodium, stilbite sodium, but it's got a little bit more silicon, a little bit less aluminum, and so is and a slightly different crystal structure. The structure is a little bit distorted compared to some of the other minerals in the group. But the principal difference in the four minerals in the group is basically the relative amounts of sodium and calcium. So I'm going to show a few specimens of stilbite here. This is a stilbite that I collected in one of my early Nova Scotia trips that Scott was along with from Canada Creek on the south shore of the Bay of Fundy. This is an Indian zeolite from Nasik, India, a stilbite that is. It's a fairly nice specimen. This is probably about 6 inches tall. It's another somewhat different habit of stilbite, also from Nasik. This is a stilbite, or a couple of larger stilbite crystals on a plate of heulandite from Iceland. Iceland is another area which is quite prolific in its zeolite production. A lot of local collectors will be familiar with the various volcanics from New Jersey. This is stilbite from the Upper New Street Quarry in Paterson, New Jersey. This is another stilbite from Nova Scotia. This one from Parsboro. Most zeolites, if they're pure, are purely white. Anybody who's a big color fan in their mineral collecting probably won't find zeolites their preferred group of minerals for collecting. Although with a little bit of iron or other transition metal contamination or some inclusions of colored minerals, you can sometimes get some coloration, and this is typical of some of the stilbites from Partridge Island, which are fairly bright orange in color. It's another New Jersey specimen from Moore's Station Quarry in Hopewell, New Jersey. It's another deeper orange stilbite. This one from Woodbury, Connecticut. And then for of purely local interest, this is a small thumbnail-sized cross of stilbites from Acushnet, Massachusetts, and another small thumbnail of stilbite from Woburn, Massachusetts. Moving on to stellarite, the calcium-rich or the calcium end member of stilbite. This is a nice specimen of stellarite from Kazakhstan. And another nice crystal group from volcanics of New South Wales, Australia, southeastern Australia, in New South Wales, parts of Victoria around Melbourne, and adjacent Tasmania are another major zeolite producing region. And then finally, this is a specimen from actually, I'm not sure the pronunciation, but from Sitka, Alaska, of barite, the sodium end member of the stilbite group. It's widely believed that barite may not actually be originally formed as barite, but may have been transformed to that by interaction with seawater, as all of any calcium that may have originally been present just gets diffused out and replaced with sodium ions in long-term exposure to seawater.
If I can just jump in, that last locality is also geologically very unusual in that it's a subduction zone, so you're probably subducting sodic altered oceanic crust. So there's probably just tons of sodium in the system.
Yeah.
Dana, can we ask a couple questions?
Oh yeah. Anybody feel free? Yeah, excuse me. Feel free to jump in at any point. Yeah.
So I've have some tourmaline with stilbite on it. Is that a normal thing to see in pegmatites? Is that you talked about some late zeolites forming in pegmatites?
I would say stilbite is not common in pegmatites, but it's not rare either. In terms of the zeolites, in terms of what might be termed the common zeolites that you'll find in pegmatites, you'll occasionally find stilbite. You'll occasionally find chabazite, analcime, a couple of others, but as I'll show a little bit later, what the late stages of pegmatites are particularly known for are some of the exotic elements, like the cesium zeolite pollucite, or the lithium zeolite bacchidite. Anyway, yes.
The other question I had was, there's been a lot of recent research about pegmatites that the crystals were forming much more quickly than anyone had ever imagined. Even within hours, things form. How about zeolites? Is there any research into how quickly? I mean, since they're forming and cooling volcanics, flows. Is that a quick forming crystal, or is it?
I don't have any explicit answers based on my literature reading on that's pertinent to that question, but my hunch is that many of these do form quite rapidly. That you're not talking about these forming over the course of years or centuries. They're probably forming over the course of days or weeks or months. And basically, in both the late stage pegmatites and the last stage hydrothermal waters in extrusive volcanics, it's entirely likely that you've basically just got hot water that's slowly cooling in the bubbles and fissures and cracks in the rock, and as it gradually cools, those minerals form, and that cooling probably takes place over no more than months to years at the most, I would think.
Thanks.
While we're on the subject, can I just ask, where does epistilbites fit into that?
I've got a slide with epistilbite that we'll get to in a little bit. Epistilbite is its own structure. It's not really closely related to any of the other zeolite structures. Epistilbite was named epistilbite because somebody back in the day thought it was quite similar in some respects to stilbite, but in fact it has no direct relationship to stilbite at all. The natrolite group, which a lot of people are familiar with, is a structure that tends to be tetragonal needles in its form, tetragonal or just slightly off tetragonal monoclinic in its structure. They tend to be sprays of needle-like crystals. Natrolite is probably the most common, although mesolite and scolecite, especially from some of the Indian localities, can be some of the most spectacular. And then there's a couple of others, gonardite and paranatrolite, which are less common, but still available as good collectible specimens. This is a specimen of natrolite from Cape Grim in Tasmania. You can see the entire top surface of the specimen is covered with terminated needles of natrolite. This is a specimen from Mont Saint-Hilaire in Quebec, and in this instance, you've got fairly blocky natrolite crystals sitting on top of analcime crystals. This is another example of late-stage pegmatite formation. However, in this case, it's not a granite pegmatite; it's a nepheline syenite pegmatite.
Did you collect that?
No, this is a specimen that that I acquired from somebody who did collect it. There was a lot of this type of material that was found back, I think, in the late 70s, early 80s. This is a specimen of natrolite from Millington, New Jersey. And a fairly blocky crystal, probably about an inch long, from First Walkton Mountain in New Jersey. It's a thumbnail of natrolite from San Benito, California. A lot of people are familiar with natrolite from San Benito from the gem mine because that's the matrix that the benitoites and neptunites are etched out of. But occasionally you'll actually find free-growing natrolite crystals there. This is a specimen of mesolite from Kanad in India. Here it's a fairly tight radiating ball where you don't really see the terminations very much. Here is another specimen from Nasik in India, where you can now see the terminations. It looks very similar to the Cape Grim specimen of natrolite earlier. This is a specimen of slightly blockier mesolite crystals from Palabora in South Africa. This is a bit of an unusual locality. The sort of off-white crystals that are on the top are the mesolite, and the matrix is apophyllite. And then here's a specimen of scolasite from, again, from India. And then this is the more spectacular form that one can find in India. If one has both the money and the skill in caring for it, you can find entire spheres of balls like that are made up of crystals like this, upwards of maybe a foot in diameter. I would love to own one, but A, I don't think I'll ever afford one, and B, even if I did, I'm not sure I could care for it because it's just too delicate. So I think this is going to be my good Indian scolasite. Another group that most people are to some degree familiar with is the heulandite group. Common heulandite is heulandite calcium, which is a calcium-rich version of heulandite. But heulandite also has been defined as sodium, potassium, barium, and strontium versions. And then in a bit of a deviation from the traditional nomenclature in zeolites, you've got clinotillolite, which has got the same structure as heulandite, but it's got less aluminum and more silicon in it. Now, in most zeolites, the silicon to aluminum ratio does not change the name of the mineral, but for historical reasons, clinotillolite had been named many years ago, and furthermore has been an important indicator mineral in petrology for many years, and so they've stuck with the name. This is a specimen that I collected at Cape Blomidon in Nova Scotia back in the 1980s. This specimen is probably about 5 inches across. You can see the characteristic sort of diamond shaped to the crystals. In many cases, there's a cutoff of the termination to form a so-called coffin-shaped crystal. You can see just a little bit of it on this crystal at the top here. This is a specimen of heulandite that's been available in the marketplace the last few years from the Rat's Nest claim in Challis, Idaho. This particular locality has produced some absolutely fabulous heulandites in recent years, and they are sitting on top of a matrix of mordanite, which is the massive white mineral underneath. This is a specimen. This is an Indian specimen of heulandite. Again, large crystals on a volcanic rock matrix. Now these are specimens of clinotillolite. Clinotillolite, unlike heulandite, doesn't generally form large specimens. So more often than not, you're going to get thumbnails to micros of it in most of the occurrences where you're going to find it in collectible specimens, as distinct from just petrographic thin sections of the like. This is from the Boron open pit mine in Kern County, California. This is clinotillolite from Sucker Creek in Oregon. Again, this is a micro specimen. This is clinotillolite from Camarilla, California. You can see the coffin-shaped termination on this particular crystal. Now the next group includes again a fairly well known to collectors mineral analcime, and which names the group the analcime group. Analcime forms isometric, meaning highly symmetrical, cubic crystal system groups. And the sodium end member of that structure is analcime. The calcium end member is a mineral called weyerkite, which is quite common in petrographic environments or sedimentary environments, but almost non-existent in good quality specimens. And then pollucite, which is a cesium rich version of the analcime structure, which is generally found in late stage granite pegmatites. So here's a specimen of analcime crystals, again from Mont Saint-Hilaire. This is the same mineral assemblage, and may in fact have come from the same pocket as that previous analcime or natrolite specimen. You can see natrolite crystals around the edge, and here and down below here are cerandite crystals as well. This specimen is probably about 8 inches across. This is a crystal group, probably about 2 inches across, from the Phoenix mine in the volcanics of Lake Michigan, or Lake Superior in Michigan. A lot of people are familiar with coppers from the volcanics up there, because a lot of the volcanics are very rich in coppers. But analcimes are also well known from the Michigan volcanics. This is a monster analcine crystal from Yakutia in Russia. This is a free-floating single crystal. It's about 4 inches across. And here is another specimen that I collected myself from Cape Blomidon in Nova Scotia. Now, this is a specimen of pollucite from Gilgit, Pakistan, which is probably where the best pollucites come from a crystal standpoint. There are a few other pegmatites where if you don't mind it massive, you can find large amounts of it. Some of the pegmatites in Portland, Connecticut, are fairly rich in pollucite, and I think there's one Canadian pegmatite which is commercially mined for cesium for that purpose. But here you can see in a few of the reflections here and here the crystal surfaces of a very rude crystal group. This specimen is probably about 6 inches in 6 inches across.
Just to interrupt, Frank Perham, I was listening to the interview that the Maine Mineral and Gem Museum put out. They did an interview with him in 2015. Apparently, he found fairly significant specimens, collectible specimens of pollucite at the Tamanin quarry back when he was working. I thought that was kind of interesting. I hadn't heard about that as a prime mineral from Maine pegmatites, but apparently it does occur.
Yeah. Well, there are a number of pegmatites where pollucite occurs as a massive mineral. I don't know about, but it wouldn't surprise me if there are some actual free-growing crystals that have been found from time to time.
Yeah, at the Hewitt Quarry, which we go to as a field trip in the summer most years, there are massive amounts of pollucite there, and many folks have found it.
At the Emmons pegmatite as well.
One of the difficulties for most collectors in finding pollucite at pegmatite localities is it's massive and it's white, and it doesn't really look that much different from any other quartz or feldspar mineral unless you know what you're looking for. Now this is a specimen of wericite. The specimen that's a thumbnail-sized specimen, and the mineral is just the massive white material in the center. From a aesthetic point of view, it's not much, but it's about as good as you find for collectible wericite. This is from Japan. The next group of minerals is the philipsite group, which is a structure which has a number of named minerals based upon the primary cations. The philipsite name has been subdivided into calcium, potassium, and sodium variants, and then the barium variant is the long-standing mineral name harmatome. This is a fairly decent-sized specimen, probably about 3 inches across, of philipsite from Tasmania. This is a specimen, probably about, again, 2 or 3 inches. The individual crystals are maybe half a centimeter or up to a half a centimeter or so in size, of philipsite from Germany. This is a micro specimen of philipsite from the Salzbach 1 quarry in Germany. And then for local interest, this is harmatome and chabazite from Northfield, Massachusetts. The philipsite are the two prismatic crystals in the very center of the slide, and the chabazites are the surrounding, almost cubic-looking minerals. And then this is, apologize for the focus on this. This is a harmatone from Strontian, Scotland. And another specimen also from Strontian. I just mentioned Chabazite from Northfield. The next group is the Chabazite group, which consists of two relatively common collectible minerals, Chabazite calcium and Levine calcium, although there are also sodium, calcium, magnesium, and strontium members of the Chabazite series that have been defined, and a sodium end member of the Levine series. This is a specimen of Chabazite along with some fairly decent-sized heulandite crystals that I collected on Cape Blomidon in Nova Scotia. The individual Chabazite crystals are probably about 1 centimeter in size. This is a Chabazite group from Parsborough on Partridge Island in Nova Scotia that was collected on one of our family trips in the 1970s. Again, for some reason, Partridge Island tends to be much more colorful than the other Nova Scotian zeolite localities. I'm not entirely sure why, but much of the Chabazite from Partridge Island, as well as some of the ones from nearby Parsborough localities, tend to be much more colored than many other localities. This is a Chabazite crystal from Victoria, Australia. This has got a different habit. It doesn't have the sort of pseudo-orthorhombic shape that is most typical of Chabazite. This has got what's sometimes referred to as the flying saucer habit, with pseudo-hexagonal bipyramids that look like squat hexagonal saucers. This is a Chabazite from Upper New Street Quarry in Paterson, New Jersey, along with some heulandites, and I believe that's on a quartz matrix. This is Chabazite from Upper New Street Quarry in Paterson. This is a colorless Chabazite sitting on top of some green prehnite. And again, from local interest, this is Chabazite collected just down the street from a road cut on I-495 in Tewksbury back in late 1970s or so. And again, the contrast is not very good, but you can see the sort of honey-colored Chabazites from Acushnet, Massachusetts. And then this is a specimen of Chabazite sodium, the end member of Chabazite. And the picture is not as well focused as I would like, but in the very center, you can see the hexagonal shape of the Chabazite sodium. The yellow mineral, which makes up most of the matrix, is the gamelonite that's referred to. Gamelonite is another zeolite mineral, which I'll get to in a couple of minutes. The other mineral in the group is a mineral called Levine, which has the same structure as zeolite, but its crystal habits tend to be quite different. They tend to be fairly platy in their structure, in their habit. And this is a typical Levine from the Beech Creek Quarry in Mount Vernon, Oregon. And another specimen from the same locality. You can see the hexagonal aspect to the crystal outline in this crystal. Thompsonite is its own structure, and there have been defined two variants of it: the common version of Thompsonite, which is Thompsonite calcium, as well as a strontium-dominated version of it. This is Thompsonite from Kilpatrick, Scotland. The specimen's probably about 3 inches long. And the interesting thing about this particular specimen is Kilpatrick is the type locality for Thompsonite. And I'm not sure what's trying to install here.
Where is Kilpatrick?
I would I'd have to look on the map to see where in Scotland it is, but it's
Is it the Highlands?
North of England is the best I can tell you. Basically.
Is it? Do you know if it's in the Highlands?
I don't actually.
Okay, enough.
What the hell is going on? Pardon my French here. It's looking
Here,
like GoTo is trying. Yeah,
I would try to X out of that if I were you.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm trying to figure out. How to do
Carl will figure it out.
it.
Oh, here you go.
There we go. Okay, there we go. This is Thompsonite, Thompsonite calcium from the phonolite quarry in Germany. And this is Thompsonite calcium from the Shakar quarry in Nasik, India. And these are this is a ball of terminated crystals, although they're tightly packed, so you don't see the terminations that easily without looking up closely. This is also Thompsonite calcium again from India. Now we're going to start getting to a few of the more obscure zeolites. One that's quite collectible because of some very large crystal finds in India is Goose Creekite, which is its own structure. There isn't anything, any other minerals than the one from in the Goose Creekite group. And this is an example of Goose Creekite from Nasik, India, where the best Goose Creekites in the world come from. The Goose Creekite, the contrast is not good, but the Goose Creekite is this big group and this smaller group right here, and it's sitting on a quartz matrix, which is why you've got the white on white lack of contrast there. But this specimen is probably about 4 inches across. And then this, on the other hand, is a tiny little crystal, about 1 millimeter in size, of Goose Creekite. But this, the distinctive feature of this is it's from the Goose Creek Quarry in Leesburg, Virginia, the type locality. Now, gamelonite is another distinctive structure. It's a small group of 3 minerals. Common gamelonite is gamelonite calcium, but there have also been sodium and potassium rich versions of it named. This is a specimen of gamelonite from Prospect Park in New Jersey.
Thank you, Scott.
Mordenite is another unique structure. Mordenite is a zeolite that was named for the town of Morden in Nova Scotia on the south shore of the Bay of Fundy, which is its type locality. But the Mordenite from Morden, for the most part, is not very impressive looking. It's just little nodules frozen into the basalt. This is Mordenite from Cape Lookout in Oregon. This got a texture almost like cotton. This is Mordenite from a locality, from a generic locality in India, sitting on top of slightly amethystine quartz. You may recall from a previous slide that Mordenite was the base mineral in the Challis, Idaho heulandites, the rat's nest claim heulandites.
Dana, how large is that?
This specimen, I'm from memory, this is probably somewhere in the 4 to 6 inches from top to bottom. This is Mordanite from India again. This is about a 4-inch specimen. And then for local interest, this is a Mordanite from Burlington, Massachusetts that I picked up at the Micromounters show a couple years ago. At least I presume it was correctly identified as Mordanite, but that's at least what the label says. Somebody asked about epistolbite earlier. Epistolbite is its own structure. And this is a typical epistolbite from Iceland. And this is a ever so slightly out of focus epistolbite from India. So probably the best epistolbites come from India, but there's competition definitely from the Icelandic ones.
I can see why that would have been mistaken for stillbite originally by the discoverers. It's got that sort of bladey, very pearly look to it, so I can understand the similarity, the thought that it was.
That's right. Eddingtonite is another zeolite that is its own structure. It's a barium-rich zeolite, and it's a fairly rare zeolite for the most part, but it's found in great abundance at a particular locality called Ice River in British Columbia in Canada. This is about a 4-inch specimen of Eddingtonite crystals.
Hey, Dana?
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts as to why, given their fairly similar structure and background, why some zeolites are found so commonly in some areas and not in others and so forth? I mean, if they're all sort of low temperature, hydrothermal, that sort of thing, wouldn't they sort of all generically be found like all over the place?
Well, low temperature is a little bit of a hand wave there. It turns out that there are critical temperature ranges that all of these things form in. So you can, in fact, sometimes tell the temperature of the VUG, or the temperature of the zone, or the temperature of the hydrothermal environment based on which zeolites were produced there.
Ah.
There's also a tremendous range of dissolved solids in groundwater, so you can have a tremendous difference in the chemistry of the water that might also play into it.
Well, that's right. The silicon and aluminum content, which particular cations, whether it's sodium rich, calcium rich, or rich in other more exotic elements, all of these things can have an impact on which minerals are formed. One of my favorite zeolites is eugawarolite. Again, it's its own mineral group and it's a distinctive structure. This is eugawarolite from Yugawara Hot Springs in Japan, which is the type locality. This is about a 2-inch specimen. Some of the best eugawarolites in the world are from the Malad quarry in India. This is about a 2 to 3-inch specimen of eugawarolites from India. This is a specimen of eugawarolite from Iceland. And this is some monster eugawarolite crystals from Chena Hot Springs in Alaska. This is about a 2 to 2.5 inch wide specimen, and that single crystal there is about 1 inch long. And all of the crystals on the top portion of this are eugawarolites. A fairly obscure mineral, which again is its own structure and is of particular interest to local collectors, is Will Hendersonite, named after the former local micromount collector Will Henderson. And this is a specimen of Will Hendersonite from the San Venanzo Rieno quarry in Italy. which I think is one of the few localities where it's been found. Another fairly obscure one is Chernishite. Again, its own structure. This mineral was named after Rudy Chernish, who is the author of the big zeolites book that a lot of people have seen, and a major zeolite specialist collector. This is Chernishite from Gobel, Oregon, which is, I believe, the type locality. Nice little microcrystals in a vug. And another specimen of Chernishite from the same locality. Another unique structure is bauxite, which has been found at the same locality as the Chernishite. The two were found at roughly the same time and in the same little outcrop. This specimen is not the greatest photograph, unfortunately, but this sort of white area down in the vug is the bauxite. Paulingite group is another group of zeolites. Again, it's another isometric group forming nice round cubic system crystals. Paulingite has got, in addition to the common paulingite calcium, they've got potassium and sodium rich versions. These are paulingites from the Czech Republic. You can see that the crystals here look almost like garnets in terms of their trapezoidal faces. And this is paulingite from Ritter, Oregon. And I'm thinking this might be the last group, but the Brewsterite group, which is another structural group. Brewsterite strontium is the primary mineral, although a barium version has also been described. And this is Brewsterite strontium from Strontian, Scotland, which I believe is the type locality for it. Let's see. No, I'm sorry, we've got colzite still here. Colzite is colzite from County Antrim, Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland volcanics are another important area of zeolites. There's quite a number of fairly rare zeolites that have been found there. And then this is colzite from Iceland. And next, another group is phogicite, of which there are several groups, mostly found as micromounts. This is a poor quality photograph of phogicite calcium from San Bernardino, California. The white mineral in the center is the phogicite. This is a better specimen of phogicite from the Lindbergh quarry in Germany. And we've got ophrotite, which is a potassium-rich zeolite. This is from Rock Island Dam in Washington. And ophrotite from Germany. And I think that that brings us to the end. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to field it.
Yeah, if there are any questions for Dana, let's leave him on presenter until he's done with the questions.
Dana, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't drone on too long with photographs.
No. It broadened my horizons.
You can never go wrong with pictures of specimens.
Yeah, beautiful specimens.
Yeah, I have to second Dana's assessment that should we get a trip to Nova Scotia, I would definitely like to do that, because that was also a very influential locality for me as a young teenager to go there and be able to actually collect specimens that are still in my collection today. Beautiful, beautiful hand specimens of presentable pieces.
Yeah,
God, you were never that young.
yeah, I've been up there. I've been up there 5 times, and I would happily go again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to take the control back from Dana. So let me find myself on the list. Okay. Make presenter. Okay, hopefully people are seeing my screen again.
Yep.
Is everybody seeing the Zeolite title slide?
Yes.
We've got your screen now.
Excellent. We're going to do the raffle now. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording so that we're done with that for the web presentation. If we put this on, I'm assuming, Dana, that you're willing to let us put this on the web, or if you'd rather not, just let me know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it'll be just for BMC members. We'll send out a private link to it, and then we'll just leave it up for a short while and then take it back down. Okay, so for the raffle, again, I have a random number generator. I've made a list while Dana was talking of all of the people that are in this session. And I'm going to go ahead and select randomly. If your name comes up, I think I've crossed out the people that won. There were 5 winners last time. I've crossed them out. So hopefully we won't have any of those awkward moments where somebody is like, I think I won. I don't know if I won. Anyway, so I'm going to generate the first random number. Comes up as 31. 31 on my list. That would be Michael Webb. It's Paren Webb. It's just Michael. No further identification. Is that person still on?
I'm going to say good night to everybody. Good night.
Good night. Okay, where is my...
Good night.
Some people dropping out. Okay, so let me see if that person is still here on the list. Michael on the web. Okay,
Yes,
Michael on the web is there. Who is Michael on the web? I'll give you 10 minutes to respond. 10 seconds to respond. Then we'll move on to another number. So it's listed as Michael Paren Webb on the list. So if that's you, by all means, pipe in, and we'll give you one of the specimens. Five, four, three, two.
Yeah, hello?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Are you Michael?
I'm Michael, yeah.
Okay.
When you refer to the other stuff, so Michael something rather, I'm not sure what that is about.
You're identified in the people list as Michael Paren Webb. It means you're on a web browser is how you're seeing us.
Oh,
but
okay.
You don't have a last
All
name,
right.
so it's just Michael. What is your last name?
I see. Gotzelik. I can type it in the chat.
Okay, that'd be great. And which of the specimens did you want?
The garnet would be great.
You'd go for the garnet, number 4. Okay.
Okay, so I would appreciate if you could. I put my email address. I have the raffle specimens. My name is Jonathan Goldberg. I put my email address in the chat. If you could send me an email with the name of the specimen you want, not the number, but the name. So garnet and your name and mailing address, I will mail it to you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Sure.
Okay, congratulations. Let me hit another number. Let's see who's next. Number 9. That would be Dennis, also on the web, also no last name. Do we have Dennis on the web still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You're still here. Last name?
It's Presna.
Presna, okay.
Prezya.
So which one do you want?
Give me the copal.
The copal. Okay, number 5.
Yep.
Okay. Again, if you could see my email in the chat, send me an email.
Yeah, I got you, Jonathan. Thanks.
Great. Perfect. Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, next one's 38 on my list. That would be Pete, also Webb. A lot of people didn't put their last names in the description, so it's just Pete. Who is Pete? They're still here. So Pete, whoever you are.
Yep,
Pete Jackson?
that's me.
That's you.
I'll go for the barite.
Go for the barite, number 1. Okay.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, 2 more to go. Having success here. 16. 3 for 3 and actually giving them away. We have Jackie Thompson is the next winner. I think the fluorite and the quartz are still left. Is Jackie Thompson still with us? Jackie
Just sent
Thompson
up
on the web.
a note.
Yeah, they put up a chat message saying number 2.
Number 2. So, okay, they're going to go for the quartz. Okay, Jackie Thompson gets the quartz. Again, Jackie, make sure that you send email to Jonathan with your name and mailing address so he can get that one to you. And then finally, we have the fluorite, beautiful purple fluorite. Let's see who gets that one. 24. We have Joel of Joel and Ellen.
Yes, we're here. Both of
Okay,
us.
Joel, you've won yourself a purple fluorite cleave from Illinois.
Okay, well, that's great.
Okay, all of you make sure, as Jonathan said, you got to send an email to him and make sure your name and address are there so he can get it to you. And make sure you list the mineral, not just the number. So quartz or barite or fluorite, whichever it was. And that's all we have for tonight. Unless there's anybody else has anything they want to say, I think that's it for the meeting. I want to especially thank Dana. That was a fascinating talk. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yes, it was.
Thank you, Dana.
Great talk, Dana.
Thanks, Dana. It was great.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much.
Glad you all enjoyed.
Thank you, Dana.
Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to turn this thing off.
Look for everyone next time.
Bye, all.
Yeah, see you in person next time.
Jonathan, I eat more sushi.
Yeah. Night.
Bye.
Take care,
Thank you,
everyone.
organizers and presenters.
Good to see you all again.